Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So, as some of you may know, based on the last video that I uploaded, I know it was absolute terrible quality and I'm very sorry about that. I had my baby. Let's get into the story of how my labor went and where we are now. So as of today, I am, I don't know, a week and some days postpartum. Um, and so I decided to stop going to work. Obviously, I didn't just like stop going. I went through the proper motions and I got a doctor's note and I updated my leave of absence with my employer and with the leave of absence people. And we got everything all sorted out, and I temporarily have quit my job. Not really quit, I just am not working right now. I go back, I'm supposed to go back based on what my doctor said, and is like the end of April. But I can go back sooner than that as long as I get the. Oh, police. As long as I get the go ahead from my doctor. As long as my healing process is far enough along and I feel like I can do it and she feels comfortable with me going back to work, then I can go back. So probably maybe beginning to mid-April instead of the end of April. I kind of want to wait until like the middle because that's my anniversary. So I kind of want to be able to be out for my anniversary. But anyway, so I was home and I was supposed to be home anyway. I was already scheduled to be off that day, but at that point, I had already decided I was not working anymore because it was very difficult for me to function. I was having a really hard time. I was having contractions almost every time I would work because the physical activity of it was a little bit too much. And it would cause me to have contractions and not being able to go to the bathroom as often as I needed to and not being able to drink as much water as I needed to. All in all, it was kind of just a bad situation, and I really just needed to take time to rest and take care of myself and my baby. So, I was at home, and my husband was home. He hadn't gone to work yet. He was supposed to be to work. He was going to work in like an hour, and I was sitting, when I was like crouched down on the floor. It was cold. It was snowing that day. I remember we got up that morning to take the dogs out, and I opened the door and I was like, what the fuck, it's snowing. Like, I wasn't prepared for this. So I got out the dog sweaters and I was putting a sweater on my dog. So I'm crouched down on the floor and I've got this sweater half on my dog and I go, oh, I think I just peed a little. And I'd said this out loud and my husband's like, oh, okay, whatever, nothing new. I was like, all right, well, I'll just finish this real quick and go to the bathroom. And then I was like, oh, I just peed a little more. Okay. So I was like, all right, I really need to fucking hurry this up. And then a gush happened. And I was like, oh, so I looked at my husband and I said, so either I can't stop peeing or my water is breaking. And he kind of looked at me like, are you serious? So I'm like, and I like got up and like ran to the bathroom, and like the whole way I was like starting to like drip water. I was like trying to hurry up and get to the bathroom before I just like got water all over the floor. Cause so far I'd leaked quite a bit, but it was still contained in my pants. Like my underwear and my pants and everything, and my little, panty liner that I had on was so far enough to like hold it in, but it was definitely not gonna last. So I ran to the bathroom and I was like, okay, I'm sit on the toilet. So I sat on the toilet and I peed. And then I kept peeing. Except it wasn't pee. I was like, okay, so my husband like kind of walks into the room and he's like, so, and I'm like, I'm literally sitting on the toilet, actively trying not to pee, and liquid is still coming out. I'm pretty sure my water just broke. So I like clean myself up and jump in the shower, not to shower, just to stand in the bathtub because literally every time I twitch, more comes out. So I'm like 99% sure at this point that my water has broken. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna call my dad. I don't know why that was my first thought. I was like, I'm gonna call my dad. So I called him, I was like, hey, my water just broke. And he was like, okay, is Sean at work? I was like, no, 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 no. He's here. He's actually calling labor and delivery because my husband, the smart one, instead he goes, I'm gonna call labor and delivery while I'm like, I'm gonna call my dad. So he is on the phone with them and he's like, okay, so we're pretty sure my wife's water just broke. Um, and they were like, okay, that's fine. Go ahead and come on in and we'll take a look at her and blah blah blah. So I'm standing there like kind of waiting, hoping that it's gonna stop so that I can like put clothes on. Because I'm still standing there with like I'm literally naked from the waist down. I'm just standing in the tub. And so I called my dad and I called my best friend and I called my mother-in-law, and gave them all the news, like, hey, my water just broke and we are about to be on our way to the hospital. So I'm standing in the toilet, I'm standing in the bathtub, and my husband is running around the house grabbing the last little bit we needed for the hospital trips, for the hospital stay. So, like, our phone chargers, our toothbrushes and stuff, the things that we were still using. So he grabbed our bags, grabbed the diaper bag that we'd packed for our baby, went and put it all in the car. And he comes back in the house, and I'm like, hey, bring me a pair of underwear, a pair of pants, and I need my pads, which were actually in one of the bags. Which I told him that before he put them out in the car. But so he brought me that stuff. I got myself cleaned up as best I could and hurried up and jumped in my clothes and just like, all right, put a towel on the seat just in case this pad is not enough to contain it. It was an extra absorbent one, but I wasn't sure it was going to be enough. So he went and put that out on the seat, and we left. We put the dogs up, and we went to the hospital. And I only live like 5 minutes from the hospital, so this whole ordeal from the time my water broke is about 11 o'clock in the morning when my water broke, and we got to the hospital by about 11:30. So it was about 30 minutes from the time it broke to the time we got to the hospital, and I hadn't started having contractions yet. So I was a little concerned that maybe this wasn't the real deal. Maybe I really did pee myself, but that was just me being nervous and scared and very unsure. So I'm standing in the lobby of the hotel, God, I can't talk. I'm still stupid, guys. I was standing in the lobby of the hospital while my husband went and he dropped me off the door and went and parked the car. And I just kind of stood there. Like, I didn't go talk to anybody, be like, hey, I think my water broke. Could I get a wheelchair to go up to the room? Which I felt stupid. And part of the reason I didn't ask for it is because I felt stupid asking for it. Because I was not in any pain. I could walk. It was just every time I moved, more stuff came out. So I was like, I can walk, but I'm probably going to leave a trail of water because this pad is not going to hold up forever. It's going to get too full at some point and stuff's going to start leaking. So my husband gets in and he's like, what the hell? Like, why are you still down here? Because way back at the beginning of the pregnancy, I told him, when I'm in labor, you're going to drop me off the door and I'm going to go. I'm just going to go. And you can come in and, like, come find me, but I'm just going to go. And I didn't. I was scared. I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it by myself. So I waited for him, and then he got in there, and he immediately goes over and goes, hey, so her water broke. Can we get a wheelchair? I'm like, oh, thank God he asked, because I was, like, super nervous to do it. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, absolutely. So they get me a wheelchair, and they sit me down, and we head on up to the fourth floor, which is where labor and delivery is. And they bring me in, and I sign in and everything, and I'm like, hey, so my water broke. I'm 38 weeks in 2 days. My water broke, and here I am. So I signed in, still not having any contractions at this point, and they bring me into my room, and the nurse is super, super sweet. She's very nice, and she was like, here's your stuff. Go ahead and go get changed. Take everything off. Put the gown on. Pee in the cup. Blah, blah, blah. So I do all that, and because I wasn't allowed to wear anything, down there, I was still leaking amniotic fluid everywhere. So I made a puddle in the bathroom and threw a towel down to kind of cover it up, and I squished my legs together, and I kind of waddled back into the room and kind of leaking as I go a little bit. And when I lifted my leg up to get into the bed, I dropped another puddle on the floor, and she's like, oh wow, yeah, your water definitely broke. She's like, we get women who come in and they're like, I think my water broke, and they came in with just like a panty liner on, and they're like, yeah, I think my water broke, and we're like, doubt it, but we'll check. Yours definitely broke. And she's like, then there's a lot. So they cleaned it up. I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I felt so bad. I'm like, I know this is what they deal with like every day, but I felt bad anyway. I was like, well, you gotta clean up my liquids. Sorry. So I'm laying in bed, and they strap me in with the monitors, the same monitors that I had for my non-stress tests. So I was all stuff that I was used to at this point. Um, and basically they just left me there for a while. They checked me, and at that point hold on, let me look, because I took notes of the day, because I wanted to remember when things happened for this very reason. So, okay, come on. Yeah, so at 11 a.m. my water broke. At 11:30 we arrived at the hospital. At they checked me so I was there at 11:30. At 4 o'clock they came back and they checked me, and I was dilated to a 4 at that point, which the day before I had gone to the doctor and I was dilated to I believe still a 2. I believe I was dilated to a 2, and she was like almost a 3, and now I was dilated to a 4 at 4 o'clock. And they started me on, before they checked me, they had started me on Pitocin, because I wasn't contracting yet. Like, I was kind of, like, they were just really little ones. They didn't hurt that bad. But they wanted to kind of get things going. They'd said that, they wanted to hopefully have this baby delivered within 12 hours because the risk of infection goes up so much. So, they started giving me Pitocin to kind of ramp up the contractions a little bit, kind of get things going. So I was going into labor. I went into labor on my own, but they were like trying to help it out a little bit. And she was like, "We're just gonna put you on a really low dosage, and we're gonna increase it in small increments. And we're trying to mimic the way your body would do it, so that we're not like shoving Pitocin into you and like flooding your system and everything is horrible and awful and you hate life." So she started me off with a very small amount of Pitocin, and every so often she'd come in and she'd bump it up a little bit more. And so my contractions started getting a little worse and a little worse. And then she bumped it up one more time. Now, anybody who has ever had a baby and anybody who has never had a baby, if you don't know this, when they put you on Pitocin, they go up. I don't know what the units are, but it's a scale of 0 to 20, typically. Sometimes they'll go higher than 20, but most of the time they don't really go higher than 20. So she had me, I was fine as she had me at 6. She bumped me up to 8, and I thought I was going to die. The contractions got so much worse so quickly. I was floored. It hurt so goddamn bad. And at that point, they wanted me up out of bed. I had a wireless monitor on so that I could get up, go pee, and I could move around a little bit, try to ease the pain any which way that I could. They had me on a birthing ball, so I was kind of bouncing and just trying to function. And the contractions were getting really bad. And my mother-in-law and father-in-law came and visited, and they were there shortly before the contractions got worse. And they were horrendous. And I was crying, and I could barely breathe, and I was not okay. But I was still determined I didn't want the epidural. So eventually, my husband's best friend came and visited for a little bit, and he was only there for maybe 5 minutes before I, leaned over and through very clenched teeth said they need to leave. So Sean kicked his parents out for me. Everybody left, and they got me back into bed. They bumped my Pitocin back down to 6, thinking maybe that would help ease it up a little bit. And I decided I wanted to have pain meds. They offered, because I didn't want the epidural, they were like, we'll give you pain medication in your IV, and hopefully that'll help take some of the edge off. And it's not going to take the pain away completely, but maybe it'll make it bearable. It's like, absolutely, let's do that, because I didn't want the epidural. And before I got back into bed to get my medication, she's like, well, do you need to pee first? I said, yes, I do. So I went to the bathroom, and while I was in the bathroom, baby's heart dropped. And his heart rate dropped, and I came back in, and she said, okay, so baby's heart rate dropped, and because it dropped so low, we can't give you the pain medication. So And I was like, fuck me. So I'm laying there and I'm like trying to push through it. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna grin and bear it. Okay. Baby's heart rate dropped. No pain medication. It's okay. Everything's fine. I'm laying in bed in agony. Like, literally, the contractions happening are bad enough that I'm almost screaming. Like, it hurts so bad. I am literally almost screaming in pain. And finally, I'm like, fucking tap out, tap out. Give me the goddamn epidural. I can't do this. I'm like crying. I'm screaming. I am in so much pain. I can't fucking think. Give me the goddamn epidural. So they give you something, I don't know what it is, but they give you something in your IV that you have to have before they give you the epidural. And they came in and they were like, all right, obviously she's in like a lot of pain. We're trying to like speed this process up. So they put it in one of those little compression baggy things that they pump full of air, so it just squeezes it, so it makes it go faster. So I had that, and it when that was done, they came in and they're like, okay, we're gonna do the epidural now. And they had me sit up on the edge of the bed and scoot back, which was hard to do because I was in a lot of fucking pain. And the nurse put a pillow in front of me and had me hold on to the pillow because I had to stay in a certain position and kind of like lean forward and whatever. And she kind of was there like rubbing my back up where they weren't going to put the epidural and rubbing my arms and like everything's going to be okay. Just breathe, breathe. And then she's like, all right, we're going to do the lidocaine. She said, it's going to hurt a lot. And I said, fuck it. I'm already in a lot of pain. I don't give a shit. Ain't nothing going to hurt worse than it already fucking does. So she's like, all right, in 3, 2, 1, pinch. And I'm like, fuck you, bitch. That was not a pinch. It hurt a lot. Still wasn't as bad as the contractions, but it fucking hurt. So they put the lidocaine in and she like rubbed it around to spread it out. And then I didn't feel shit. It kicked in quick. Like, I didn't feel the epidural go in at all. She was like, you might feel a little bit of pressure. And it literally felt like she like was poking me in the back with her finger. Like, I literally no pain whatsoever. I didn't feel it going in. I was completely unaware of anything happening. And she's like, okay, we're done. And she laid me back and she's like, okay, so your epidural is in. You're good. You can no longer get up, so we have to do a catheter because you are like attached via the epidural. She's like, if you start feeling pain again, push this button and it'll put a dose of the epidural back in. But it's going to go off every, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I can't remember what she said. It's going to go off, on its own, but if you start feeling pain, push this button and it will dispense the medication sooner. And then literally felt nothing. Like, from just below my boobs to all the way down to my toes, I felt nothing. It was the strangest feeling. Literally, I felt like I did not have a lower half of my body anymore. It was gone. And so they put the catheter in, didn't feel it, and they were like, okay, and we're just gonna let you lay here for a little while, and we'll let you get some rest, and then we'll come and we'll start doing position changes here in like 30 minutes to an hour. So they left once again, and I just laid there, and I could still feel the contractions, but not the pain of the contractions. I could feel like, it felt like somebody was pushing on my stomach, basically. Like, I just felt pressure. So I did that for a while, and then I fell asleep, thank God, because I was fucking tired. And I got the epidural at 6 o'clock, by the way, since I don't think I said that. Yeah. So, and they checked me too, at 6 after the epidural, and I was dilated to a 5 at that point. So, they left, let me sleep, and they came back to do some position changes, which did not go well. Baby was not tolerating position changes. His heart rate kept dropping. They tried me on my right side. They tried me on my left side. They used the peanut ball to put my legs this way and that way. And they would leave me there for a couple of minutes. And then they would change it again because he was not tolerating it at all. His heart was dropping, which we knew was a possibility that could happen during the labor because of my cord insertion, my marginal cord insertion. So that was a problem. So he was not tolerating position changes. I could only sit in like 2 different positions, so they just kept putting me back and forth between those 2. But they were trying to do these position changes that would help progress the labor, and I couldn't do any of them because his heart would drop. So this went on between 6 and 9, about 9:20. They came back and they checked me, and I was dilated to a 7. So we kept trying to do the position changes. It kept not working. Nothing really new between all of that. And then at 11:30, I was dilated to a 7.5, maybe. So from 9:20 to 11:30, I dilated half a centimeter and stopped. I got stuck at 7.5. Baby wasn't getting any lower in the pelvis. Things were not progressing. And at that point, it had been 12 hours. My water broke at 11. It was 11:30. It had been 12 hours. So they were like, all right, so we need to discuss what you want to do. If you want to keep trying to wait it out, we can. If you want to try to go for a vaginal delivery, or we can go ahead and take you to a C-section. And here's what we're thinking. We think baby's head is too big, and your pelvis is too small, and I don't think he's going to be able to drop very easily. Not that he can't, just that it's not going to be easy. This is probably going to be a lot more time. And based on how much his heart rate is dropping and all of these other factors, you are at a high risk for needing an emergency C-section anyway. But if you want to wait it out, if you want to try for a vaginal delivery, that is your choice. We will do that if that's what you want. Or we can get you prepped up, and we can take you to a C-section and be done in an hour. And so the doctor had come in and told me all this, and she left and gave my husband and I a chance to talk. And I kind of already had my decision made before she even left the room, but I wanted to see what he had to say. And because I really wanted a vaginal delivery. I did not want a C-section at all. But at this point, I had been laboring for 12 hours, and he was kind of in distress. His heart kept dropping. I was getting scared that something would happen to him if I tried to push. And I decided before she ever left the room, I was going to get the C-section. But I wanted to know my husband's opinion, and we were both on the same page that I don't want to push for hours and hours, have him be all distressed, and potentially some complications occur, and then end up needing to have an emergency C-section anyway. So we went ahead and bit the bullet, and I said, I will go and do the C-section then. I would much rather have a happy, healthy baby than a vaginal delivery. So they said, okay. At 12:38 a.m., they started prepping everything, getting me ready for my surgery. So they came and they brought my husband his scrubs. He was the only one allowed to be in the room, which he was the only one who was going to be in the room regardless of if it was a C-section or a vaginal delivery, so irrelevant. But he got his scrubs, and they got my hairnet and all that, and the anesthesiologist came in and she gave me some stuff to help relax me. Translates to, I was fucking tired enough already, that just knocked me the fuck out. So I was very, very drowsy, and it also made me feel sick. I did throw up before we left for the C-section. Sorry, I got like gunk in my throat from all the talking. So she gave me my meds, and they were like, all right, and we're ready to go. So they wheeled me out of the room, took me to the OR, and got me prepped, explained what was going on, and that everything that they were doing, they had me take my arms and stretch them out on either side so I didn't, like, inadvertently try to reach down and fuck some shit up. Which, I was feeling good, so I wasn't gonna do nothing. I was high. Like, straight up, I was high. And the only thing I didn't like... I threw up again when we got there because of the moving, I think. So I threw up again, and into a towel, because they didn't have a throw-up bag for me to throw up into. So I had threw up in a towel, and then they left the towels here. So I had, like, a towel, like, here, and then one, like, here, because I couldn't swallow. And I don't know if it was truly that I couldn't, or that I was just too high to, remember how to do it, but I started freaking out. I was like, I can't swallow. Like, I have, like, spit and gunk, like, up in my throat, and I can't swallow. And the anesthesiologist was like, it's okay, it's alright, you have to calm down. If you can't swallow, then spit it out into the towel. So, for the time that I was awake, I kept spitting into the towel. And my husband was there and was like, hey, it's okay, you're doing great, everything's fine. Bitch, I don't remember none of it. Like, that's it. That's all I fucking remember. I fell asleep. And I was in and out a little bit, so I'd wake up a little bit and hear him kind of talking a little, fall back asleep. Wake up and hear him talking a little bit, fall back asleep. And then I woke up for the last time. I was awake at that point. I was done falling asleep, I guess. I don't know if maybe the medication was wearing off or if I just got enough sleep and I was like, I'm fine now. So I woke up and I heard them say, you look just like Daddy. And she gave birth to a toddler. So, and then I heard my husband say, like, he's beautiful. And then I heard my baby cry, and I thought I was gonna cry, but I couldn't. I was still kind of high, so I was very emotional, but could not cry. And then they brought the baby over after they had done what they were gonna do, gave him to my husband, and he was like, do you want to see him? And I was still, like, ripped open down below, so obviously I wasn't going anywhere yet. So I kind of turned my head, and I got to see my little baby. And they took my husband, they had him go back to the room with the baby while they stitched me up. So it was about another 30 minutes or so, and I kind of went back in and out of consciousness there for a little bit there after that. So I guess I wasn't awake fully. And I do remember at one point I was awake and I heard one of the nurses say, she has nice eyebrows. Oh, thank you, I guess. So they stitched me up and everything went well. And then they wheeled me back to the room. I threw up again when I woke up from it, like, officially. When I was, like, everything was done, they stitched me back up, I threw up again. I'm like, I'm so sorry. And then they wheeled me back to the room, and everything was starting to wear off, and the epidural was starting to wear off, but it was very slow going, and I just felt very sluggish. So we're in the room, and my husband's been doing, like, skin to skin with the baby, and he's, like, ecstatic. And he's like, do you want to hold him? And in my mind, I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to hold him. Give him my baby. But I said no because my arms were numb. And I was really, really worried that I would not be able to hold him, that I would drop him. So I said, just give me a minute. I can't feel my arms. So I want to wait till I get, like, feeling in my arms back. So probably about another 15, 20 minutes. And then I was like, okay, give me my baby. And he is beautiful. He has a full head of hair and a little double chin, and he is just precious. I am so in love. I don't even know what to do with it. And he was, let's see, what did it say? He was born at 1:17 a.m., by the way, on the 21st. So he was born 9 pounds exactly and 20 inches long with a full head of hair. And the doctor told me after the fact that it was a very good thing that I did have a C-section, because when they were removing the placenta, and they were going to clamp the cord, to cut the cord, and the umbilical cord snapped in her hand. So she had grabbed it to clamp it, and it just snapped. So she said if I had tried to push, that probably would have happened inside of me. And it would have been highly likely that baby could have been in distress from that, and very likely that she would then have had to reach inside of me via my vajayjay and pull the placenta off the wall manually with her hand. That does not sound like fun. And they did say it turns out my marginal cord insertion actually was a velamentous cord insertion, which is what they had thought originally. Which a marginal and a velamentous insertion are basically the same thing. It just, a velamentous is a more severe case. So where the marginal, it's in the wrong spot. With the velamentous, it's really in the wrong spot. So they said basically mine was actually a velamentous cord insertion, and it's a very good thing that I had a C-section. We stayed at the hospital so we got there Thursday and we left Sunday afternoon. And we spent the time there with the baby, and family came and visited, and his name is Nathan Alexander, and he is the light of my life. I am super, super happy. even though things have not been the easiest, we have struggled a little bit to adjust to parenthood. And my husband is back to work now, which he is very upset about. He only got off for about a week. He did not want to go back. He wasn't ready. But everything has been going pretty well. I'm actually about due to go get little man up and feed him again. Some disappointment with the feeding. I intended to exclusively breastfeed, and for whatever reason, little man can't latch. I don't know that it's that he can't or that he won't. He just can't figure it out for some reason. But I am still giving him breast milk. I'm just pumping. But he eats a lot, and I don't quite make enough yet for him for like the whole day. So he gets some breast milk, and we do have to supplement with formula to make sure that he gets enough. Took him back to the pediatrician for his first appointment, which was when he was like 5 days old, I think. 4 days old. Ow. My incision still hurts. Coughing and sneezing is terrifying. Just so you know. It also took me 3 days to poop, in case you were wondering. So we took him back to the pediatrician, and he is already back up past his birth weight. So he was 9 pounds when he was born. Before we left the hospital, he was 8 pounds, 8 ounces, and now I don't know about now, but when we took him to the pediatrician, he was 9 pounds and 3 ounces. So he is a little chunk. He's doing wonderful. Everything is perfect. He is healthy. Mom is happy. Dad is happy. Everything is great. We are getting the hang of how much he needs to eat because everybody says like 1 to 3 ounces, but like, what? I don't know. Does he need 1 ounce this time? Does he need 2, 3? I don't know. So we've been doing 2, and then if he needs another to make it 3, we give him another ounce. So we're kind of figuring out how much he wants to eat, figuring out what his cues are that he's hungry before he starts screaming. He loves to be swaddled, but he doesn't like his hands being confined. So he will find a way to get his hands out, and sometimes he'll kick his feet out, but he likes to be swaddled. For now, he is staying in our bedroom, in a bassinet next to the bed on my side. And we do plan, once he starts sleeping through the night a little bit more, we're going to move him into his own room. Mostly just because if I gotta get up, 6 times a night, I'd much rather just swing up and stand up out of bed instead of having to get up and walk to the other room. And we keep all the stuff in here to do bottles. So that it's all in the bedroom. We don't have to go out to the kitchen. We don't have to go to the baby's room. We don't have to go all over the house. So everything is going good. We are getting the hang of it. We're figuring it out. And this, I guess, is the end of my pregnancy vlogging and the beginning of my motherhood vlogging. I am almost back to pre-pregnancy weight. I've got about 8 pounds to go before I am where I was. And that's not something that happens to everyone. It helps that I'm pumping, because pumping and breastfeeding does help you go back to your pre-pregnancy weight. Or so they say. I mean, it doesn't work for everybody. So if you don't snap back immediately, like right away, don't worry about it. Like, I'm still wearing my maternity clothes, my maternity pants and my leggings. Like, I have not put real jeans on yet. Mostly because I'm absolutely terrified because of my incision. Like, I'm not ready to do that yet. I go back to the doctor on Wednesday for my first postpartum appointment and to discuss my birth control options. So I need to figure out which birth control I want to get, because if I'm getting like an IUD or the arm implant, they have to order it. But they're going to put that in at my 6-week, I believe, at my 6-week appointment. But they have to order it, so they're going to order it at this one. So that's really all for this video. We've discussed, the birth. I mean, I was in labor for about 14 hours by the time little man was born, and it was amazing. It was a wonderful experience, even though it fucking hurt up until I got the epidural. So that's my advice to you. If you know for a fact you don't want it, and you don't get it, absolutely more power to you. If you don't want it and you end up getting it, more power to you. I was dead set against it, but I was it sounds like somebody's banging on my door, so I will talk to you later, and bye.